Hey everyone, welcome back to this Stone and Straw podcast. This is episode 11. I am your host, John Cullen. Great to be back with you. As always, this podcast is brought to you by CurlingZone, Dynasty Curling, and Hardline Curling. The Briar's just gotten underway. Maybe by the time you're listening to this intro, it's already over and none of the things I'm going to say matter, but that is the beauty of the podcasting world. You can follow us on Twitter, by the way, at Stone Straw Pod. Our guest today is playing in the Briar. He got off to a hot start. And then tonight was the victim of one of the biggest comebacks in Briar history, up 5-0 to Brendan Botcher, a previous guest on this podcast, by the way. You can always check that episode out. And he is hopefully going to turn the ship around, and the boys have looked real hot to start the week. Our guest this week is Mike McEwen. And you know, this was a fun one to do. I don't really have any personal anecdotes from my own life to share with you. It's just been a lot of comedy over here, not too much curling as the season winds down. Getting ready for mixed provincials, and going to be playing in the House of Hearts Bonspiel in Minnesota, in Duluth. So really looking forward to that, hanging out with a bunch of my American friends, and looking forward to playing in a charity Bonspiel. Going to be doing some comedy there, I think, and just having a good time on the ice. I have to skip, so my team's probably going to suck, but we'll do our best. But as I said, this episode features Mike McEwen, and Mike was a guy from the time I started the show I really wanted to have on, because I think, for a couple of reasons, I think he's a very, very thoughtful guy, and you'll hear that in some of the answers that he gives. You know, you can almost feel him kind of pausing after I ask the questions, kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to answer this? Super thoughtful guy, and he's just been through a lot. You know, anytime you play with a team for that long and you go through the things they went through, from not being able to make the Briar for a long time to then making it a couple years in a row, then making the Olympic trials final. The team almost broke up a couple times. Mike is super candid and open about all of that stuff, and that's exactly why he was the type of guy that I targeted. As soon as I started doing this show, he was a guy I just had to get on the show, and thankfully we were playing in the same event in Penticton, British Columbia. Amazing event, by the way. If you haven't ever played in it, the Ashley Homestore Classic in Penticton, one of the best non-slam events on tour. They really take care of you there. Organizing committee all the way up the chain, just fantastic event. So if you've never been, and Penticton's beautiful, especially you come out in November, the weather's probably going to be nice. I don't know where you live, but Penticton's probably nicer than wherever it is you live in November. So if you're a men's team out there looking for a spiel to play in, that's the one to do it. And I went to Mike's beautiful Airbnb. You know, when you got that high class, that elite team money, you know, you can stay at places right on the water. I was shacked up in a garbage hotel, but Mike was gracious enough to have me over to the Team Carruthers household and just gave a fantastic interview. And I think he's a guy that a lot of people would love to hear from for all the reasons I mentioned before. And so we'll just get right to it. I'm impressed with myself. I'm making these intros a lot shorter, so your voices have been heard. I know that there were some people who didn't enjoy the 7 or 8 minute intros of interviews past. So please enjoy this interview with Team Manitoba, Skip, Last Rock Thrower. I don't know, however they're doing their lineup right now. They're in the middle of the Briar. They're doing great. By the time you listen to this, who knows what's going to happen, but I have a good feeling about them. This is Mike McEwen. This episode of Stone and Straw is brought to you in part by Dynasty Curling. Dynasty Curling is a Canadian company that has been around since 2015, changing the landscape of curling apparel both on and off the ice. And my team uses Dynasty. We're repping the Dynasty clothes out there. They're super comfortable, super nice, and we're not the only ones who use them. Obviously, Olympic and world champions, Team Jennifer Jones, Team Chelsea Carey, Team Gushu, Team Adine, Team Kody, and many more. If you follow them on Twitter at Dynasty Curling, you can see their insanely good roster. But what a lot of people probably don't know is that Dynasty also creates a lot of curling products for off the ice as well. It could be hats and hoodies that just have the Dynasty logo on it, which look great. They have gear to support your favorite team or your favorite province at the Briar or the Scotties. And they also have workout gear, which is really cool too. So you should obviously check them out, and especially check out that apparel. You probably didn't know. You probably just think, oh, it's only this sublimated curling gear I see on the ice. No, they have awesome off-ice stuff, and because they're really sweet, they have a deal just for you for listening to this podcast. If you use the promo code STONESTRAW at checkout, you'll get 10% off your any purchase you make of Dynasty off-ice apparel. So that's pretty amazing. So head on over to dynastycurling.com Enter in the promo code STONESTRAW and you'll get 10% off your order of Dynasty off-ice apparel. And if you live in Winnipeg, they just opened a retail store, so you can check that out at the Granite Club in Winnipeg, or check them out online at Dynasty Curling on Twitter, Instagram, or dynastycurling.com. Okay, so I start every podcast with the same question, and that is very easy, Mike. I think you can handle it. How did you get your start in curling?
You know what? I ended up probably the curling club was daycare at times for me. You know, both my parents curled, and just things were different back then. I think kids got to run around the curling club while their parents were out on the ice and were unsupervised. And, you know, sure enough, at some point I definitely wanted to get out there, and I have some early memories, you know, of being put on top of a rock, you know, as a little kid and being pushed up and down the ice. And
then when you started curling, you're like, what? Curling isn't like this all the time?
Yeah.
I just want to ride the rocks.
Yeah. I started with the big rocks, and I don't remember how long it took me to be able to, like, you know, get a big rock down to the other end. But I think I started like playing, you know, in mixed spiels and things like that, like some fun things with my mom and dad, and just kind of took to it, and probably started my first league somewhere around 10 years old.
Nice.
Got into something.
That's
and
young.
I just somehow got pushed to back end position right away and sort of stayed there ever since. I never had to, you know, gruel it out in the front end. I was fortunate.
That's nice.
Got to go right.
Your shoulders are still intact.
Yeah, well,
for now
they're feeling it a little bit this year.
I know. I've seen you sweeping out there. It's, I mean, you're doing okay, I would say, for a guy who skipped like basically his whole life. You're doing pretty good.
Hopefully I look better than what maybe some people expected.
I think there's some skips who, if they had to sweep, it would be a lot worse. We'll put it that way. So were your parents good? Like, were they playing a lot, or?
My mom just played recreationally, but my dad tried to play competitive in his younger days. Maybe, you know, you had to win like a half spot out of a club sometimes, and then go play another club just to,
right.
You know, the process in Manitoba was
absurd.
Long, and
yes,
I think at one point he did win a half spot in the city and in Winnipeg, and I think he played out of the Granite at one time, but unfortunately just didn't quite ever make it to provincials. But you know, he had aspirations. You know, and played at a decent competitive level, but never really, you know, made a big mark. But he coached me, and you know, definitely, you know, had massive influence on me, you know, really getting obsessed with the game.
Nice, that's awesome, because my parents didn't curl, so it's always cool to hear from like people whose parents like curled and encouraged them. And you talked about Manitoba and it being like a crazy place, and I can't even imagine, especially at the time you came up as a junior player, it must be tough to like get going. Like, did you have a moment where you kind of thought, okay, I'm pretty good. Like not an ego moment, but just I can hang. Like, this is something that I can do. I can see myself doing.
Oh, I definitely felt like that towards the end in juniors. You know, I felt like a big fish.
Yeah, that's good.
And I mean, it was legitimate. We were, you know, I played with Nolan Thiessen and Denny Neufeld and Jordy Hargreaves, and our last year juniors. Yeah, for sure. We lost the Canadian final to Brad Gushu. So we were definitely one of the best junior teams in the world at that time. We had won a spot into our men's provincials. So I remember we were beating up on all the Brandon men's teams, and, you know, we were 19, 20 or what have you, and they didn't like that very much. So yeah, we thought we were good, but then my dreams got shattered pretty quickly in men's. Eyes got opened up a little bit once I stepped in with the big boys permanently.
Well, because I was going to talk to you about that, because, you know, I think for all the success that you had in junior, which was a lot, it took you a little bit to get going in men's. Like, pretty notably took you a little while, whereas some other guys, it's a bit more of a quicker transition to playing at the top level. What do you think it was for you that kind of maybe didn't make it so fast?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I perhaps part of that was where I lived, and it's not that there wasn't a lot of good players, but it's difficult to find 4 guys in a similar location and go out and do what we do. So I think some of it was helpful coming to Winnipeg. I think that made a big difference for me as a player, and I didn't do that till my late 20s. So I had a lot to learn. I didn't get the tutelage under, like a Jeff Stoughton or a Kerry Burtnick. I would have loved to have that opportunity. I was jealous. A guy like Reid got to play for Stoughton. Dan Camerlock, if you remember, he had really, like, right out of juniors, played with Kerry Burtnick, who I would have died to play with. And you're like, why can't that be me? Yeah,
totally.
Like, I think that would have really helped me make that step a little bit sooner. So I kind of had to do it on my own. And, unfortunately it took me a little longer to learn things than I would have liked. I'll be honest. Like I didn't get smart till late 20s on, just a lot of things. It's just, I didn't think it would have taken that long, but it did. And I just had a lot to learn. And finding, 3 other guys to come with me on that journey is not easy. I think sometimes you just fall into it. Sometimes it just happens, and some guys maybe get it early in their, like John Morris is a guy who had just an amazing team right out of juniors. And I think I had to search a bit longer for that. So I think, part of it was maybe where I was living, timing, things like that. It's hard to find 3 other guys that have the same commitment and willing to almost go broke to break through, basically. And pretty much, I was redlining a few times before we.
That happens for sure. I mean, I've been redlining for 15 years now, so I'm still waiting for the black line to come. But yeah, no, I think that's really a great point that you make, because you came up, and I've talked about this on a few previous episodes of the show, that you kind of came up in a time where that was very common, that the older players would pick up who was good in junior. That would be like a very common, like that's who they would get to play their front end. The back end would kind of stay sort of the same guys, but they would pick up guys in the front end. And so you said that you were frustrated, and that was maybe a little bit of a jealous thing. What were you doing to try to keep up at that time, or how were you learning if you weren't learning directly from playing with those guys? Do you think?
That's a tough one. I'm not sure I was doing enough to learn, to be honest. Just going out there, and we played a lot in Manitoba. Didn't have the budget really to go very far outside borders. I did play third for a couple years for James Kirkness, who did go to the Brier. So I obviously learned a little bit those 2 years playing third under somebody who had done quite a bit more than I had. But I just I'm not sure that maybe necessarily I was exposed to as much as I would have liked, as far as like learning and maybe high performance camps and things like that. Maybe just when I was coming up in Manitoba, there just wasn't quite as much as I see the opportunities now, but maybe my lens was different then, and I was just missing the opportunities. I think I was a bit naive on how much work it was going to take, and maybe I probably didn't have the dedication, the discipline at the time, and it just took me 6-7 years of men's to figure that out. And all of a sudden you're 27 and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think it would take this long, and it still took longer than 27 too. Like,
right.
But I think the biggest breakthrough for me, other than getting the three guys of like the previous McEwen team that was together for 11 years, I think the biggest break that I felt that we got was we had a sponsor that came on board and watched us play the first couple of months, and we were struggling and playing a lot in Manitoba, and he just came to us and said, if you guys don't travel, you're not going to get better. And he funded us to go play in Ontario in an event. I think he sent us to Brantford, and a couple of other events outside the province, and paid for our flights, our hotels, and said, I'm sending you outside the province to learn. And it was kind of like a break I think that was a big moment for our team, because we got to travel and play against different teams. And I think that learning started to really happen a lot quicker.
And so did you ever have a moment where, two questions, it's a two-pronged question. First of all, did you have a moment where you thought, okay, I'm done with this? Like, this is a lot of years of beating my head against the wall in Manitoba. Second question, when do you think it did finally like click in, where you had that same confidence that you had in juniors, where you're thinking like, okay, I'm starting to be a bit of a bigger fish?
Well, it got pretty dicey. Dawn had just moved from Ottawa to Winnipeg. We bought like a tiny little place, like, something that we could barely afford at the time. And I remember I was working and, trying to juggle a work schedule and still get off enough time to play things. And I think there was a Canada Cup qualifier East, and it would have been in Ottawa, and I couldn't get the time off. Like, it wasn't happening. And this was a scary, probably a bad decision for most people at the time, but I quit my job the week, like a few days before the Canada Cup.
Wow.
So yeah, I had like a full-time job, and I quit my job because I couldn't get the time off. And I can't remember if I really told my team at the time what was happening. And they probably didn't know that I was borderline not going to show up for the event.
Yeah, that's usually best to just sort of leave that detail out.
Yeah. But I think, our coach this year, Rob Meakin, said, I think I shared that story with him, and he said, there's something about really needing to win, because if you don't, you're pretty hooped. Yeah. And so I quit my job, went to the Canada Cup, and finally, that was actually like one of our first breakthroughs as a team in a big event, because we made it all the way to the final. And I think we beat Russ Howard in the semifinal, and we played Kevin Kody in the final, went down to last rock and almost pulled it out, but so finished second. But that got us, that qualifier from that Canada Cup qualifier East, got us into our first Canada Cup. And that kind of, all of a sudden the confidence went like, holy, like maybe we can do this. Yeah. But I mean, it was pretty scary quitting the job. And I mean, it's not like there's a lot of money in the bank to free roll here. So yeah, that was a pretty big moment that could have gone really badly.
Was that a tough conversation with Dawn when you were like, okay, well, I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna quit my job so we can play this qualifier?
Yeah, I don't know if she felt too good about what I did. Then, like, it's probably, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she's probably thinking, who's going to pay the mortgage? Me? Yeah, you're just...
That's probably what she was thinking.
Yeah, probably.
So let's go back a little bit. I'm always fascinated by how teams come together. And like you said, you had a team that played together for 11 years, which is almost unheard of, especially in today's game. How does your team with Matt Wozniak and the Neufeld brothers, how did that come together? What do those early conversations look like?
Well, Matt and I had played at least a couple seasons before that. Right. And, we were switching players out every year, and there was no consistency. But Matt and I we're getting along really well. And I think Denny had maybe played with Vic Peters for a handful of years out of juniors, and we talked to him about getting Denny, and Matt was going to play third, and Denny was like, I think we should get BJ. And I think BJ at the time had just finished juniors and was maybe kind of set up to play with Daly Peters. So essentially, we're like, are you sure? Like, he's 21. Like, but Denny vouched for him, like, you know, my brother's going to be good, like lots of talent. And they're like, okay, we'll put him in at second if you can convince him to leave Daly. And so we basically stole him from another team.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had no idea, like, you know, I didn't know much about Beej at the time, but Denny really vouched for him, said he's going to be good. And so we initially started with BJ playing second and Matt playing third, and away we went. Didn't go very well like I said, the first 2 months didn't go well, and I rolled the dice with quitting my job. And at that same time, we switched Matt and BJ from second to Matt went down to second, BJ went to third, went to the Canada Cup, and like boom, all of a sudden we had that spark. And like I said, at that time we also had that sponsor that helped send us there. So yeah, things kind of just came together at the right time. We had that sponsor that wanted to send us somewhere out east to get better, play different teams, and we made the lineup switch. I quit my job, and holy crap, we made a final. We didn't lose money on a weekend.
That's nice. That's a nice feeling. Was that a difficult conversation with the position switch with Matt and BJ, or was it?
It was actually, if I remember correctly, it was Matt that suggested it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had kind of really mixed results the first couple months, and it was Matt that brought it up.
That makes it easy.
I think Beej was like ready to do it. Like he was like, but it for sure came from Matt, and so it made it easy. And Beej was, he was excited to go right into the third spot, and he doesn't look back.
No kidding. That obviously seems to be the right spot for him. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit because, like, you guys had some varying success, and you've already talked about a moment for your team with the Canada Cup qualifier where it felt like it came together. Then you start making provincial finals, and you have a great run of making provincial finals.
I'm probably going to break the record for provincial finals for a player.
You might get up there. I think like in Manitoba, probably. But I know
I'm hoping to pass Stouty on that.
How many did he lose?
No, just like I'll obviously lose more provincial finals.
Then he's won. Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, you just mean the record of being in the final. I thought you were talking losses. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Stouty's got 6 wins. I've got 6 losses.
I think Jeff's been in, I want to say a dozen provincial finals.
That's crazy.
And he's like 11-1. Something like that.
That's a nice record.
Yeah, so that's a lot of provincial finals you got to make.
I think Brent Pierce has lost a lot of BC finals. He's got to be up there for overall like provincial final losses. Like I bet he's lost 5 or 6.
Oh.
It's up there.
He's tied with me somewhere in there.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah, you don't want to keep. You don't want to know. That's a good move. You don't want to know the exact number.
Yeah,
You're like,
I'm not
counting.
Last year's didn't count.
That was well. We're gonna get to that, but okay. So you like I said, you've lost it a few times in a row. At what point was there did it start to become a thing for you?
It was a thing.
Yeah, I know it was a thing, but was there a point because I assume if you lose the first one, you're like, well, hey, that's our first provincial final. We're happy to be in the provincial final. I'm just assuming. Mm-hmm. So how many does it take? At what point did it become a thing? I mean for you, mentally, not just for people paying attention.
Definitely. We had a run in, I'm trying to remember the year, maybe it was 2010-11, probably about our 4th year as a team, where we had all of a sudden shot up to, at that time we were the number 1 ranked team in the world. We ended up second that year in ranking. I think Glenn Howard went on a run at the end of the year and won the Brier, won the Worlds, and just passed us.
That's right.
We won 2 Grand Slams that year, and we went in the provincial final. Provincial's actually a fairly big favorite over Stoughton. as much as a favorite could be, I guess,
Right.
over Jeff. But
But you're number one in the world.
yeah, at that point in the season, we were number one in the world, and this is for sure around that time span, and Jeff, we struggled, but we grinded, and we still made the final, but we were not playing anywhere near capability, and Jeff took care of us in the final,
Took care of business.
and I probably had a less than stellar interview with the media, and
You did.
oh yeah,
What happened? What'd you
those.
say? What'd you say?
I don't know. I might have alluded to maybe the best team didn't win. Something that I shouldn't have said, and really didn't mean it. And then, sure enough, Jeff goes and wins the Worlds right after.
Was that the with Reid?
That would have been when he won the Worlds in Regina.
Yeah,
that sound right?
That sounds right. It was in Canada for sure. Yeah,
yeah, not my best interview.
That's okay. We're trying to make up for it right here on Stone and Straw.
Yeah, I mean, that for sure became a thing then.
Because that was how you felt.
Oh, and then the media was like, every year was like, and that year too, and then going on, it was like,
because what one was that? Was that your third or second?
Definitely
third.
I want to say third, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah. So
maybe second or third.
So you say that to the media, the best team didn't win. You felt that. You felt like the best team didn't win?
Yeah, I maybe said that at the time. Heat of the moment, might have actually felt it, and then, realized after, oh wow, that's, yeah. Anyways. Probably said it at the time because we had beaten Jeff on tour, and our record against Jeff on tour is tremendous. We owned him on tour pretty heavily, but February he owned us.
That's an important time
remarkable
of
year. Switch. February he was the man, and he had our way with us, and the rest of the year he let us do our thing.
So why do you think that is? Do you think that that's him, or is that you?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very good in February.
And why were you not so good in February?
Well, I'm fine now.
Yeah, fine now. Yeah. February's turned into a nice month for you.
It became a thing, right? I had to I'd do some growing up as a person, and just being able to handle pressure and anxiety, with some help from sports psychology. I needed that, but yeah, there's a bunch of things that I had to evolve as a person to be able to handle actually playing in an all or nothing game. I was better when it was just money on the line and playing, a tour event or even a Grand Slam. I was much more comfortable. But when it was like Purple Hearts on the line and things that it was just, for whatever reason, as a person, I wasn't evolved enough, grown up enough for whatever reason, to handle those situations.
So what do those conversations look like when you're talking about sports psychologist, those kinds of things growing up? Like, what are the things that you did and maybe your team did internally to try to get over that? Because like you said, the media, that's when it really, I felt like, became more of a thing. And I think curling's interesting in that way, in that we have media, but it's not, it's not like you're not LeBron James. It's not every day you're reading a story about how you can't win the Manitoba provincial final, but there are stories, right? So, So how do you deal with that as a team, and then yourself? So you said sports psychology. Are there other things that you're doing?
Well, we brought on a gentleman at that time. We had some people, a sports psychologist and coach, and it was the boys' coach at that time, Chris Neufeld. So, anyways, we sort of parted ways with whoever was with us, and we met a gentleman. Well, actually, I met him first. My wife went to Sochi, and I just happened to be in Canada House having. Well, they couldn't get Molson Canadian into Russia. They had problems, so it was Heineken. So I was happy, and I spent a lot of time in Canada House, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's comfortable.
As you do, of course.
It's comfortable. And
Yeah, absolutely.
So I ran into a gentleman named Kyle Paquette, and he is the last little bit. He was with Curling Canada as kind of the lead guy for sports psychology. He's worked with Team Gushu, and he worked with my team and other teams, and he made a huge difference in our growth. All of us on our team, as not just as athletes, but as people.
Right.
They really do. They go hand in hand. The trickle down effect is real. So we're not the same people we were when we would have had Kyle in the 2014-15 season. So like a quadrennial, we had Kyle. So we're not the same people that we were 4 years ago, and he was a big contributor to that happening.
And so what was the breakthrough for you as far as, you talked about maybe mentally you had to do some growing up. What was there a specific breakthrough?
I mean, there might have been, but it feels like that it was just like a slow drip that finally added up to enough.
Right, a puddle that
it finally added up enough to finally get over that Manitoba provincial hurdle, and then it seemed like it personally added up. We each would have got to different places at different times as individuals and teammates, but personally, it seemed like it finally like filled the tank. Playing in the trials.
Yes.
It was unbelievable playing in the semi and final with no fear. And I was just like, I can't believe that even happened, that I was able to compete with that much calmness. And yeah, I got to think that's just an add up of a lot of work that we did. It doesn't seem like it was like any particular moment, but I guess if we're talking about a breakthrough, it was like, that was an aha, like, this is how good it can actually be. That would be my aha moment,
right.
Is the trial, those playoffs. Finally, all this work actually, that's... You
can say shit on this podcast if you want.
You
can say holy shit.
It basically was, yeah. It was a holy shit moment.
This is
to feel that comfortable. Like, I couldn't even imagine that. Yeah.
So that was something that you noticed when you were going through that, and it was a thing that there was a level of discomfort when you were getting to the Manitoba provincials. You could find comfort in the slams, but then once the provincials came around, you just weren't Mike. You weren't yourself.
I was not the best version of myself.
Right.
No.
And did you ever feel pressure from your teammates in that respect? Like, do you think it was a team thing or an individual thing? Like, was it a bit of like, oh, like we hope?
It might have been a team thing at one point, but then I think guys got to different places at different times. And,
right. As far as the tank being full, I guess.
Yeah, I think there was some frustration, it's tough, and there's some ugly conversations that, you break guys, basically.
Yeah.
You break them, and then, you got to build them back up. But I remember feeling, like you leave some of the meetings and you're like, you were a whipping boy. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't easy. There were some real hard conversations, real honest, hard truths. It's not fun being broken. But we became a team that could have a level of transparency that was pretty powerful. That's my only regret from that team, really, is that we didn't quite get our moment in the sun that we would have liked to had.
Right.
And, for the amount of steps that I felt that we all made, and would have been nice to kind of get that moment in the sun with those guys, the journey we went on. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of bright spots, but it was quite the journey.
This episode is brought to you by Hardline Curling Supplies. And I'm happy that it is brought by Hardline Curling Supplies because I'm a Hardline Nation member. My team's been using Hardline for the last 5 years. We were onto Hardline products before they were even on Dragon's Den. Can you believe that? Ice Pad. It's the most technologically advanced brush on the market. You don't believe me? 7 of the top 9 men's teams and 10 of the top 15 women's teams in the world are all using this brush. Kevin Cooey, Brad Gushu, Nicholas Adine, Anna Hasselborg, Reid Carruthers, Chelsea Carey, Mike McEwen, the list goes on. And they're great for the rec curler too. Don't just think, oh, I club curl, it's not good enough for me. It's phenomenal for you. It helps with your shoulders. You can use it for over 100 games. When your head wears out, you just throw it in the wash and you can use it again. It saves you money. It helps the environment. And they got a lot of great products too. They've got the best pants. Are you one of those cold curlers who's always complaining about how you're cold? Well, guess what? They've got super comfy and warm pants. They've got great shoes, shirts, helmets, broom bags, whatever you need. And if you were looking for that best delivery aid on the planet, that's Reid Carruthers Pro Slide, which you can get exclusively from Hardline Curling. It's guaranteed for life. Your one-stop shop for all your curling needs. So visit Hardline at www.hardlinecurling.com or go to any one of the 120 Hardline retailers around the world and get your products today. So let's talk about difficult conversations because 2014 happens. A lot of teams start to form for the next quadrennial. There was lots of talk that your team was teetering on.
We were
on the edge of breaking up or not.
We played that year just to see.
Yeah, like I believe that your current skip. I heard there's some rumors that would have happened 4 years ago potentially. I mean, who knows? It's all hearsay. But
then, oops, we had.
But then, oops, you had a great. So, like what I had heard, and I believe you might have even talked about this in previous interviews, or at least mentioned it that it was a series of, or at least one conversation where you decided, okay, we're going to stay together till 2018. We're doing this. What does that conversation look like? Or conversations?
And we had, other than going to the Brier and, having a Brier championship or a world championship, we had probably the greatest season on earth.
Yeah.
But at the time, we didn't realize we were essentially playing with corked bats.
Right. Yes. Well, we're gonna get to that. Let's go a little before that. Let's go a little. We got things to work to, Mike.
But let's remember, cork bats were not illegal. So, but yeah, we had like one of the craziest seasons ever. I think it was the success made the decision easy to continue.
Gotcha.
I think that's
so. It wasn't a specific conversation or something where it was like.
Well, we did have a specific conversation,
right.
But I think it was a pretty easy decision
because the success was there.
How can we not play? We just about won 10 events.
Yeah, no kidding.
Who does that?
Yeah, no shit. So, okay, let's talk about that because, so you were playing with, as you say, corked bats.
Yeah. And
I feel at least
everybody had a version of a corked bat.
Well, I feel at least a percentage responsible for all of this, but
yeah, you were before me, weren't you?
I was, and you and I had a pretty long conversation on the phone where I was trying to convince you to use them. I believe.
Well, Colin had played. Yeah. Colin Hodgson.
Colin and I, we were the two. Like we played with them kind of before.
Yeah,
we were the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I believe it was myself and Colin both talking to you about.
Yeah, you should use this.
Yeah, you should use it, man. It's pretty good. So,
the guys are great. They're trying to, grow the company. The equipment quality is really good. Like, you guys are like, why not?
Do it. Yeah, do it. And you did. Did you have a moment before everybody where you realized that the brooms were doing things that
honestly, I feel a little bit embarrassed that we didn't, because honestly, Gushu showed us what was capable.
Yeah.
And
they kind of showed everybody, but I didn't know if you guys
how did we miss that? Like, I mean, I think personally, I felt like were we not even paying attention to sweeping? Like, and there was lots of hints, but we just never really put any, not that the guys, not that we weren't good sweepers, but we never really like put the focus and attention. Now, like, everybody focuses on technique and style and everything that they're doing, but we just didn't. We just swept. And there was lots of hints and lots of clues, and some people say, no, we knew, and we got accused a lot of knowing what was going on. And honestly, we didn't. We were naive, and it's kind of, for how good we consider ourselves. And then Gushu comes out and shows, and we're like, oh, how, you're putting your hand to your face, and you're like, how did we not figure this out? Like, so yeah, I don't know how we missed it.
We knew
they were good.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that's what we knew. We knew, wow, we can really hold a rock, like, especially on hits. Like, I would say, like, on like hack board weight hits, we noticed, we're like, wow, we can really hold them better with this. We never felt like it was an absurd amount, probably because we were both sweeping and sort of negating what we were doing. But we definitely felt like, okay, we're doing things, we're holding rocks longer, but we just thought, like, well, this is a better product. We never thought, like, okay, we're cheating. We just thought, oh yeah, we
can hold line a bit better.
Yeah, we're just using the best broom. So that's good.
So we decided, well, just don't be wide.
Yeah.
Don't be wide.
Yeah, exactly.
So we weren't. So we weren't wide.
And then we held it. Yeah. And so you already kind of alluded to this, but I feel like you and your team took the most heat of anybody for the hardline brooms. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, we tried to actually stay out of it. I mean, we got, it was impossible to stay out of it. We for sure got wrapped up in it. But, I mean, you hear sideways comments here and there, and guys that you thought were buddies all of a sudden were like saying things you couldn't believe about you. And so that was pretty hard to take. There was definitely people who accused us of knowing for a long time, of literally that we got accused of orchestrating, finding that specific fabric, which is like you were using these things like a season or two before us.
Yeah, that was a rumor I heard that McEwen had a different fabric than everybody else. That was a common one.
Well, we can go into some other teams who had different fabrics of some stuff from before this, and they didn't have the same stuff. So it's interesting that there was some things that were construed quite badly. But we got wrapped up into it, and for sure we were a bit of, I think it's fair to say, we were kind of the poster boy of how good this could make a team. Almost, I mean, we lost 12 games in a season the year before, or something like that.
Right.
We were like 800 winning percentage, or whatever we were was, it highlighted how good equipment. It's not that it highlighted how good a team could be with this equipment. It actually started, and what Gushu showed us. It actually showed what you could do with all sorts of equipment should you use it correctly.
Well, yeah, look at hair brooms, right?
Oh,
we've been using hair brooms for 3 decades.
We all of a sudden figured out that hair brooms were actually used correctly were the worst.
The cheatingest.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, this stuff has been around for ages. It just, it's for whatever reason, it took Gushu to show everybody, and then things just, escalated from there, and then everybody's looking for everything, and it got pretty hairy in some events. Did
it hurt you? Like, did you have moments, like, I would imagine hearing that stuff from your friends and whatever, but I'm talking specifically about the results. Like, did that hurt you a little bit to think like, oh, like, we won. We had this 800 winning percentage. We won 10 events. Like, did you have a moment of like, like, did it feel a little discrediting somehow?
I don't think it bothered me too much. Actually made, there's lots of examples. Like, we can go back to Gowsel, who had hair brooms, push brooms before guys were switching from corn. We can go, like, we use just regular performance heads against guys who are using EQs, like when Howard and all those guys are using EQs for seasons before we ever switched. And oh man, were we at a disadvantage.
Oh, for sure.
No wonder they got by every guard and we're like we just, so there has been equipment disparity where teams didn't switch soon enough. And so that's been happening for eons. So I didn't really feel bad about it. It does, I guess, like, kind of like, oh, like we're good, but I guess we're not as good as we thought we were. Kind of feeling, right? Like, we still felt we were a really good team, and I still, that was a crazy year. I still think we finished like third that year, the Broomgate year. But yeah, it certainly took the polish off us. Like, right. we thought we were like the shits, like, you know, almost impossible to beat. And then we're like, oh wait, hold on, we're good, but we're actually not as good as we thought we were.
Was that something that you had to talk about as a team, about getting past it? And like how did you deal with it as a unit? Like you said, you tried to stay out of it.
Oh, we got dragged in. That was stressful.
It felt just watching you that it was harder on you guys than anyone else.
Oh yeah, we're hiding out in hotels, not hanging around with certain teams. I didn't want to curl after that year.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually thought of quitting?
Well, you just didn't want to play. Yeah, that was a tough year. The Brier was very tough. Like, that was my first Brier, and that completely took any kind of excitement out of the Brier that I thought would be there. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was exciting, but it certainly didn't feel like it should have, because there's a lot going behind the scenes at that Brier in Ottawa. So everything didn't feel as good, and you're like, oh, I'm just not that excited to play.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that year too, because another extremely weird thing happened. You made the Manitoba final, and you were going to the Brier. Yeah, so that was strange too. Yeah, so how do you deal with that? Like I just feel you have all this time of coming so close, and you guys were one of, if not the best team in the world at that time. Then you make it to this summit you haven't been able to climb, and then it's like, oh well, yeah, you're going to the Brier. It's cool. You don't have to make it to the top this time. Putting your flag close to the top is good enough. I mean, you guys won the game. I'm not saying, but how do you deal with that the night before the provincial final, when you kind of know, like, okay, well, we're in?
Well, so the semi was that next morning, so I didn't get like a night of sleep. We had to wait for the semifinal in the morning.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
So I didn't watch any of that.
Right.
I just think I threw on the headphones and went for a long walk, and I said to the boys, don't tell me anything, because I'm just going to be stressing watching Lions score or whatever. I'm not watching this. No, I can't, like, because if Reid and his team had won, we got to play provincial final, and now I've just put myself through a ton of mental anguish. Yes. So I just removed myself from it. But I got to say, it was relief. It was relief. We wanted to still win the final and be like, the legitimate Manitoba champions, but I'm not, the pressure was not the same. I think what it did actually is it made winning the second Manitoba title way better than the first.
Yeah. That
whole situation clouded things, and being the weird broom year and all the anxiety and stress that was going on behind the scenes. Because if you remember, we were still allowed to use hair brooms at that provincials, and then we weren't. So all the broom stuff was still going on, and just it was such a strange playing the provincial final and knowing you're already going. And so it actually made winning the next year like what it should have felt like.
Right. So did you ever feel like, I don't know what the right word is, but so you have this weird Brier final. Well, let me ask you about that first. Did you talk to Matt at all about it?
About
him deciding whether or not to play? Because I know that you guys have a great relationship and he viewed you as a mentor, you and Reid both. Was that something that you had a conversation with him about, hey man, maybe you should go to the Brier and not go to the World Juniors or whatever? Was that anything you talked about?
I don't think I got the opportunity to dive in that.
No?
That conversation with him, no. I at that moment, from what I was aware, you'd already signed something with Curling Canada saying that they were going to be Team Canada at the World Juniors. So, yeah, no, I don't recall having that opportunity to change his mind. I'm not sure I call that an opportunity. But,
no, I would have said more like not even change his mind, but I would have thought that maybe he would have looked to someone like you for guidance, like, hey, should we go to the Brier? Should we go to the World Juniors? Because I know there were people who were saying, go to the Brier. Who cares about the World Juniors? Like obviously the World Juniors is a big deal. Not saying it's not, but it's the Brier. Yeah,
no, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I didn't have that opportunity to talk to him and get his perspective. Probably because I was just removed from whatever was going on.
Taking a walk with headphones on.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Reid talked to him before the semi or something like that. That's possible. Reid and Dunstone are, Reid's mentored him too. Yeah. So they're pretty tight. So yeah, I was in my own world and
fair enough
trying to.
So did you feel let down by that? Did you feel like, so the season ends, you had a weird provincial final, you had a weird Brier. Like, how do you prepare for the next season? Because it kind of wasn't what you thought it was going to be.
Well, then the next season went really bad.
Yeah.
For the first 3 or 4 months. It was bad. Like, we almost broke up. So
yeah. So how do you deal with that?
I guess we didn't deal with it well. Yeah, didn't deal with it well. Yeah.
Are these things that you're talking about? Like, as it's not going well, are you talking about like, well, the Broom thing kind of let us down, the Dunstone thing was kind of weird? Like, are these things you're even talking about, or are you just not even dealing with it and it's just kind of going bad and snowballing?
Yeah, I don't know if those conversations really came into play when we had our bad season before the final 2017-18 trial year. Yeah, probably like I've like erased this from memory. I think, it was tough. I think our team was going through a lot of changes. We had we had a lot going on like just life. There's a lot more kids around.
Yeah, that'll happen. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think, I went through a tough spell, lost my dad right before Canada Cup. And so that November, December was tough. And yeah, just grinding through life a little bit. And that was like seeping into the team. And I don't think we were having, I know we weren't having like those real honest, transparent talks. And a lot of internalizing was starting to happen, and yeah, we almost imploded from it, right?
So what was the recovery?
Well, we had one of those, those meetings. I can't remember if our sports psychologist called in on it or if it was just the four of us. I'm trying to remember, but it was in January and it didn't go well. Like, it was one of those meetings where everybody leaves and they're mad that you're like, we're done. What's my next move? Like, we're probably not playing next weekend in the Grand Slam in, I think it was North Battleford. It's like, I think we're done. And somehow we just play. We're like, okay, we'll play. We had that honest, like, dismantling chat, but nobody left feeling good. And then we decide to play for North Battleford and just see And if basically in my mind, I'm like, well, if North Battleford goes bad, we're not even going to provincials. We're just call it a day.
Was that close?
Yes. But everybody went to North Battleford and was on best behavior. And we're like, okay, we'll play one more, kind of thing.
Right.
And then and then all of a sudden we won provincials, and okay, we'll play one more. And
I guess we'll play the Briar. We won. Sure.
Yeah, it was just, somehow that chat, I think it was upstairs at the Fort Rouge Curling Club. It's probably dark. Maybe the lights were on at the bar, but nobody was around, and it was after a practice. And if anybody came around, why are these guys huddled at a table by themselves at the curling club in the dark? But yeah, it was, I don't know, is it somehow by having that really uncomfortable conversation and like guys got off their chest what they needed to, and some of it was really hard to take. And so I took heat. I gave heat to other guys. Like, there was just no support happening anywhere, and we just weren't being very good caddies for, we weren't helping each other out on the ice or in life, and we just weren't cutting guys breaks. But somehow having that, like, just getting all that out, and then all of a sudden, like, everybody was like on best behavior, and don't get me wrong, we had to bring in probably Kyle.
Right.
Kyle had some really good chats with us, in provincials and in the Briar, and so a lot of sports psychology happening there. But it all sort of got put back together, and we were on best behavior, and it was, I think, at that point we were sort of like kind of treading water. We're holding our own. We're still a good team, still probably, top half dozen in the world, but our peers were getting better than us, and we were just sort of just staying in the same place. And it was that moment of literally like such harsh honesty and almost breaking up as a team that somehow spurred actual new growth. If we hadn't gone to that place, I don't think we could have ever had as good a campaign in our final year together as we had, because we went to such a dark place that we found new growth that, in a team that at that point had been together 10 years, I didn't think we had anymore. And somehow we found a little bit more that was so close to being good enough.
So yeah, going into the trials, that leads, you kind of already answered my next question, or getting close to that. But so going into the trials, did you feel, was that as good as you had felt going into a big event like that?
Yeah. Just prepared.
Because I feel like from the outside, I don't know that people would have thought, like, you guys were so good and your reputation was so strong that no one was surprised that you did well. But I wouldn't say at the start of the week, people were like, oh yeah, Mikey McEwen, they're going to be in the final for sure.
No, I mean, yeah, why would you pick something that, you haven't seen happen before?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So what was that feeling? Like, you talked a little bit about going to that dark place, but going into that event,
it felt, it's an amazing feeling that you feel so prepared, like you've done everything you need to do in the weeks leading up and in the months leading up, that we felt so prepared and so like our plan was good that it felt like when we showed up to trials, all we had to do was play. Right. And the outcome was going to be the outcome. We didn't feel like we had to do anything else. It was just a very comfortable place to play from. And it's not that there wasn't other things we could have done, but what we felt at that given time in our plan, we had executed everything. Like, we had such a good plan in the 2 weeks leading up to the trials that, and we didn't make any mistakes about trying to do too much either. I think some teams, I know I've been guilty of that with my team in the past, where we tried to do too much. And then I think Winnipeg trials highlighted a whole bunch of big dogs, big teams fell on their face, us included. Stout and Howard, Cooey, us, like teams just out of the gate, I think a lot of teams would say that they tried to put too much on their plate. So I thought we just balanced things so perfectly. Everybody felt just all they had to do is step out on the ice and play, and it felt like outcome was just not something that you had to worry about.
Right. You over it yet? You over it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you get over that?
I think I got over it. Like, it was weird. I felt sort of instantaneous.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was like like a little twitch or something there still, but like it just didn't feel like it, it didn't feel like it was life-changing. I don't know. It just, whatever perspective that we had gained as people, it didn't feel like I didn't need the Olympics to define me as an athlete or change my life, or like it. Yeah, it would have been awesome, but life was still going to be good.
Right.
The next day there's something else to strive for. And so, yeah, sure. Like, what could have been is, you can look back on it and there's a tinge of what could have happened and been for our team, but I don't feel like we have any regrets. Like there was something else we could have done.
Right.
That's the way it was.
Well, maybe that's where that comfort comes from. You were talking about earlier how you had to achieve that comfort. Like maybe that's what it is, right? That you find, hey, there's other stuff.
Yeah. And that plan felt so good that
right.
It didn't feel like we were searching for, did we miss something?
Right.
So maybe that gave us, I can't necessarily put words in the other guy's mouth.
No, sure.
Like, might have different guys process things in due time, and it might have been pretty depressing for some of the guys. I didn't feel that to any intensity that I thought I would. Yeah, right. I'm sure there was a bit there, but it really felt minimal.
I mean, you also did play out of your mind, so that helps.
It helps when you throw up a few 90s in the playoffs. And
absolutely.
You're like, well, we still lost.
So talk to me a little bit about that breakup. Cause you said there were multiple times where you almost did it. Was it unspoken? Like you kind of knew it was coming, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just everybody knew. It was really hard though still.
Right.
It was like everybody knew it was coming, and that's what I felt like. It felt like an unspoken, it was this cloud that was just there, and is like, it just kept getting, we won the wild card game, so it got put off for another 10 days.
Yeah. Well, you try to win the Brier.
Yeah. So it just, it felt like it was hanging around that we needed to have this talk. And it didn't seem like anybody had any reservations about it. It was just time, and there's no hard feelings. Yeah, like we almost could have not had the conversation and just okay,
we're done.
Like
we're good.
It actually, and we did have the conversation. Like I made the calls and things like that, talked to everybody individually, and it actually went surprisingly well. Like you're like, oh, this is going to be like rough and not going to feel good, but every call was like, okay.
I mean, I guess when it's mutual, right? That makes it easier. Or like it seemed like it was mutual.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So
and then we play out of our minds, and
then you're like,
and win a Grand Slam like the same week.
Yeah, that was nice. I think I tweeted something about that those are the good ones to win, because the money is just.
We should break up more often.
Yeah, you just get that money. That's nice. You're like, I don't have to put this back in the team. That's a good.
Or let's come together. We'll say we're going to play again, and then we'll break up, and then we can win something else big.
Absolutely. No, I like that. I mean, it's a good theory.
I don't think that would have worked.
No, probably not. So how did this team that you're on come about? Because I think I alluded to earlier, it seemed like you've been talking with Reid for a while.
Reid's been on me for years. Finally broke me.
Yeah, that's it. You just broke you down.
Yeah, it just broke me down.
Were there any other? Were you considering anything else, or was it a pretty natural fit with Reid?
Oh, I'm the kind of guy who has to go over every option.
Yeah,
I'm not a quick decision maker. I mean, you should see me at a restaurant. Yeah, the guys are already learning that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to learn their new habits.
right. Yeah,
And, Hodgie does his things and Derek and Reid. And yeah, they just know I need some extra time on the menu. So yeah, I looked at every option and, took my time, but, it was really the only thing on the map to do for me.
Yeah,
As my next move. Had to give it a try. Hopefully it works. I mean, but at least, you won't regret not trying to play with a good buddy.
yeah, of
Or
course.
buddies. Cause, it's not like it's just Reid and I on this team that are good friends. So, yeah, I just, knowing me, I made sure I took my time and,
Of course, yeah.
but, yeah, it was just too tempting to try to play with good friends, and hopefully it works as good as you think it does.
What do you think? What do you think Reid will bring out positively in your game?
But I'm making it out like I wasn't buddies with my old team.
No,
which wasn't true. But
I
I'm saying.
I really hated the other three guys. So it's kind of cool that I'm actually getting to play with people I like.
Finally.
We just talked about them for 25 minutes and you were very wistful. I don't think anyone was thinking like, oh God, Mike hated those
Yeah,
guys.
12 years later, I finally get to play with friends.
Finally. Oh my God.
Sorry, I forgot your question.
The question is, what do you, so you obviously, like you said, you weighed all these options. You decided to play with Reid. What were some of the factors in deciding to play with him, and what do you think he's going to bring out positively in you?
Well, I mean, I think a big factor is, the guys that he's surrounded himself with, like the team, the personalities. It certainly helps all being in Winnipeg. Well, Derek's in Brandon, a couple hours away, but it helps being, I think, in the same province, especially building a new team. And I mean, Reid's done an amazing job with, he's put together the guys that he has in front of him, and he's connected with the curling community, doing the junior clinics and running his own camp. Like he's built up a really good curling portfolio, and the business side of things too, the sponsorship, the support that matters. So he's that's attractive, having a team that I'm joining that is able to execute on that level. So it's a really good that's people you want to play with that are they're doing a whole bunch of things right. And that's not easy to find. It's it's difficult to.
Yes, I know it quite well. Thank you.
It's difficult to find those opportunities. So, that's other than the friend side of things.
Yeah.
To be able to put the amount of time that we put in, there's a lot of things that behind the scenes that have to happen.
And they're doing all those things.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what about you personally? What do you think this team will bring out in you?
Yeah, I hope they bring out the lighter side of me.
Yeah.
I kind of get my own bubble, and it's not that it's not a dark bubble,
Right.
But it's a very focused, and that's probably one of my strong suits is having a high level of focus and not getting distracted by a heck of a lot. But I mean, I think just bringing out that lighter side of me and that enjoyment level. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I want to play with a high enjoyment level. And if that can't be there, I have to really question why am I doing this, or am I in the right place or doing the right things? So, and I think that goes for life, like finding that right balance. So I'm looking for that from the guys, the enjoyment level to be high and probably find, get me smiling out there as much as possible. And I like to talk. You just get me going, and well, you might not get talking your mic, but
no, you've done well. You've done well. We're over an hour, so I mean, you're not. It's easy.
Yeah, I'm looking for enjoyment, high enjoyment level, and for the guys to bring out that lighter side of me, because I already have that focus and intensity that is probably can be maybe too much at times.
Nice. Okay. Well, great. Thanks for this, Mike. A lot of great insight. This is the part of the show where you get to, you talked about that support network. This is the part of the show where you get to thank your support network and, give a shout out to all your sponsors.
Oh, well, we have a really, really good set of sponsors. Princess Auto,
Are you guys sponsored by them?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Our jackets are blue and
your
black
appearance at all the Princess Auto locations. Yeah. Oh, that's a sponsorship thing.
Yeah,
cool.
and I mean they've been a great sponsor for curling with sponsoring.
Absolutely.
Now they're into they sponsor their own Grand Slam, Elite 10. So that's been huge for us. Hardline has supported Reid's team in the past and my team for X number of years, and yourself. They've been so good to us. So Hardline Equipment, Cullen with Dynasty, who's built up just a huge little clothing empire in no time.
And a sponsor of this podcast. So
perfect. Yeah. And Chase Auto Body Supplies in Brandon and I got some more. Springland and Walgrain are two big supporters of ours. And we got Liquids out in Alberta, which is Colin's got a good connection there that have helped our team. So we have kind of a good little collection, and we couldn't do it without them.
Fantastic. Thank you. They can follow you. The listeners can follow you on social media.
Hold on. I'm missing.
Yeah, get them in there.
Because they're new. And
exciting.
Super Auto Centers in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay.
So they came on this year, and they've been really good to us. I made sure when I'm driving up to get the oil change that I'm snapping Instagram pictures. And, so they've been really good. They got a lot of locations in Winnipeg. Good support of the community. So happy to have them on our sleeve too.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. They can find you social media, Mike McEwen 80.
Yep.
And Team R Carruthers, I think, right?
Team Reid Carruthers.
Okay.
I think it's Team Reid Carruthers.
Is it? Okay.
Maybe it's R Carruthers.
I don't know. That's you got to know that. It's not my job to know that.
No, I'm just not.
Okay, I'll look it up so that we don't.
I'm on social media.
Yeah, but you're
I got a toddler. I've cut back.
Oh yeah. You got a toddler. Classic excuse.
I watch a lot of Paw Patrol.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I've heard that's not terrible. Whoa. It is Team R Carruthers. I know your social media better than you do, man.
Paw Patrol is terrible if you've watched the same episode 30 times.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's true of almost anything, I would say. Okay, well, thanks for this, Mike, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. As always, that was episode 11 of Stone and Straw Pod. Mike McEwen, like I said off the top, just so much there, and as I said, I really appreciate, you can tell the time he takes and the care and thought he puts into his answers. It's really, really brilliant stuff. And I really value Mike as a person, as someone who is in the curling community. Most people will tell you that, he's just a fantastic guy. And you guys got a sense of that right there. Like I say, always got to thank my sponsors, CurlingZone, Dynasty Curling, and Hardline Curling. Thank my theme songwriter, Graham Wright, graphic designer, Kody Audette, and my producer, Daniel Cuzzetto. We have one more episode left of this second season and sort of first overall year of Stone and Straw, and it's with Jason Gunlickson. I know that a lot of people, if you've ever met Jason before, you'll know, super interesting guy, very smart dude, and he just lays it down. We talk a ton about curling analytics. I know a lot of you have some thoughts about curling analytics out there, what that even means, why big teams are using it, and they're all using it. If you didn't know that, like a lot of the big teams on tour now, if not all of them, are using analytics in some form. So it's a great primer for that. And he finally gives the whole Russia story. I'd heard bits and pieces about that. You may have forgotten, or maybe you didn't even know, but Jason Gunnlaugson played for Russia for about 4 months, about 9 years ago. So fascinating story. He runs it all down, from having to go to Russia and figure out all the paperwork to how they kind of screwed his team over. It's all super interesting stuff. So that's going to be the final episode of this second season of Stone and Straw. Thank you to everybody for your support. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode with Mike McEwen. Tell your friends, rate and review the podcast on iTunes, and follow the podcast at Stone Straw Pod on Twitter. You can follow me at Cullen the Curler, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks with Jason Gunnlaugson.